Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. From Knox County Commission's decision to have the Sheriff's Office run the Richard L. Bean Juvenile Detention Center to Knoxville City Council sending a sales tax increase to the November ballot. We have a lot to unpack this week, and joining us for added perspective here is former ambassador to Poland and former Knoxville Mayor Victor Ashe. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Laura, it's a pleasure to be here.
I look forward to our conversation. First, I have to ask you, with your experience with foreign policy, obviously, let's talk about the U.S. bombing at the nuclear site in Iran. When you heard about this, did you think, oh, this is the right move, or what was your reaction?
Well, my reaction was, I hope it succeeds, because obviously it was going to happen, and hopefully depriving Iran of nuclear weapons can occur. That is a bad decision to allow Iran to have nuclear weapons for a variety of reasons. But obviously when you undertake a mission like that, you don't know what the outcome will be. And obviously there's debate even today of, did we get them all? Did we get some of it? That's become almost a partisan political discussion. I don't know that we'll fully know the answer. I hope we got it all, but I'm not in a position to tell you we did or did not.
I want you to weigh in on this. Our D.C. Bureau caught up with Congressman Tim Burchett on Friday after he was briefed on Iran, and let's listen real quickly to what he had to say.
I think what I took from that was it was the correct move to do, and also I felt a lot of relief in the room, even from my Democrat colleagues, that finally we did something about Iran, even though I think they might have been a little upset that Joe Biden hadn't done something about it prior to that. I think we have to have verification, we have to have people on the ground, and we have to have cooperation from within their government, and I'm not saying for regime change, because I don't know what the number two person might be worse than the number one. So I think that's the one main thing. It's just verification.
So, Ambassador, what do you make of Burchett's statement? He mentioned feeling relieved, but he also said verification was still needed. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm not sure he yet really knows what he thinks on that issue, simply because he's been opposed to American involvement in Ukraine, in Syria, and Iraq, and other areas. That's been fairly consistent. Now that this has occurred, he seems to be more supportive. Is it simply because it's President Trump, or is it because he thinks it's the right thing to do? I hope it is the right thing to have occurred, and it may very well turn out that way. But I think we have to, as a country, be willing to protect ourselves. We cannot be isolationists. We don't live in that world anymore. And because we're the world's only real superpower, we have to be prepared to act when called upon.
Should we have done this before now? This has been an issue for a long time.
Again, I'm not privy to what the Defense Department felt they were able to do. This was in planning for several weeks. It's not something you just casually say, we'll do it tomorrow. And but obviously, it's been done. Even if it should have been done a few weeks or months ago, at least it's been done, and we'll move forward.
All right, speaking of moving forward, and thank you for addressing that, let's talk about some local issues. Controversy over the Richard L. Bean Juvenile Detention Center, Richard Bean's forced retirement, and now County Commission has said, we're going to have the Knox County Sheriff's Office oversee things. You were the longest running mayor. Obviously, you were over the city, but you know Richard Bean, you know about the detention center. What are your thoughts about this move and everything that's transpired?
Well, one, I appreciate what Richard Bean has done over the years, but on the other hand, I don't think anyone should be running an operation for over 40 years. There's something to be said for term limits and for time for a change, and that needs to happen with the new center that is developed. I appreciate the fact that the County Commission appears to be operating in a bipartisan or nonpartisan way. What is the best policy? I think putting in under the Sheriff's Office presents a series of issues that may be all right to try for 6 months or 8 months, but I wouldn't lock yourself in if it turns out not to be the right thing to do. And there are some conflicts involved in the sheriff who arrests many of these people also being in charge of their detention and how they're treated. These are young people who you want to do everything you can to get them back on the right track where they don't become permanent occupants of the detention center and then the state prison system.
Well, isn't this better, though, than what some have said? It was a terrible way to run things with essentially 3 trustees making the decision.
It's certainly a step forward. It's better, no question it's better than what you have. But better than what you have should not be the goal. The goal should be what's the best possible system. And the fact that Gina Ulster and Courtney Durrett and others on the commission have said we're going to look at how this is being handled across the state. In fact, in other states, what is the best way to take these young people who've made mistakes, some serious mistakes, and try to handle them in a way where they don't become permanent members of our public housing program known as the prison system.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for that. And here's something else we want to talk about. This is the biggest issue probably other than Iran that we're going to talk about today, and that is voters will decide here in Knoxville whether to increase the local option sales tax by a ½ cent. The city says this would generate $47 million a year. Mayor India Kincannon released a list of projects and priorities that would be funded. And in your newspaper column, you said, hey, parts of the list are laid out clearly. Others are really vague. So what are the pros and cons of this list as someone who occupied that office?
Well, first of all, I actually proposed an increase in the sales tax 37 years ago.
0.75%, yes, which passed.
Which passed with 63% of the vote. Mm-hmm. But it passed because we had a very specific program. And we also were in a fiscal crisis. The city was borrowing money when I came into office simply to pay employees their salary. We hadn't hired a single firefighter in 11 years. We hadn't hired a police officer in 8 years. We were not paving city streets, but about 4 miles a year, and there were 1,500 miles. So we had a crisis. A crisis did not exist today. There are some desirable things to do. This would help move up the process and make it happen quicker, but it's not a crisis. It's, in effect, do you want to spend the money that way? Now, we should understand the $48 million is what would be generated over a 5-year plan. If it passes and then the county joins in on it and it passes, that $48 million that is being advertised as going to the city will drop to about $28 million because $20 million is going to immediately go to the county school system. I'm not saying
that is if the county doesn't have the same tax.
Bad, but it will happen.
Explain how that works to people who don't know.
Well, first of all, the city has to pass it, which is questionable. Secondly, if they do pass it, then the county commission would have to vote to have a county referendum, which would be in the county outside the city only. And if it passes, then the school system would get a much higher portion of the $48 million. Right now they get none. And the exemption for groceries would disappear because it's a county-wide tax, no longer a city-only tax. So it gets a little complicated, and I think it'll be mid-September before people start looking at what's on the ballot in addition to the 5 council seats on November 4.
And realizing this is all part of it, and it takes someone to explain that.
There are a lot of different aspects to it, and I commend the mayor for her energy and willingness to put it forward. I'm not sure it should or shouldn't pass. That's to be determined, and it depends on what sort of debate comes forward and what arguments are made as to its viability.
You said that there's really no crisis. What about the housing crisis? I mean, there is clearly a lack of affordable housing, and the mayor said this would address some of that. Well,
it might address some of it, but it says 1,000 units. Are those 2-bedroom units? Are they 1-bedroom? Where are they going to be built? I mean, there are a lot of, just to say you're for affordable housing, who's not for affordable housing?
Sure.
But will this, as implemented, really solve the problem? Is it the best approach?
Interesting. The mayor also points out that a lot of people who live outside the city shop here, and that the city would better benefit from outside spending if sales taxes go up. Is that alone a strong enough point and a strong enough pitch to attract voters, or would they even care about that?
Well, it's certainly a reasonable pitch to make. But remember, if it goes countywide, that percentage drops considerably because people in Farragut or Powell or Halls will also be paying it wherever they shop in Knox County. But certainly who pays the tax is a legitimate question to ask, and there will be a lot of people who live in Anderson County, Blount County, Loudoun, who will come in and spend money.
All right, but do you think it'll pass? What do you think? If you
Well,
were in that
I
office,
think
would
it's
you
yet to
want
be
that?
determined. I mean, I'll have to see what kind of program is put forward to advertise it. In other words, they need to be more specific than they have been on where the sidewalks are going to be built. What are the changes going to be made to the Cumberland Community Center or to the Dean Hill Recreation Center? It can't just be renovations, whatever that means.
How far are they going to go?
I don't know
Yeah.
the answer to that, but they need to be a lot more specific and really turn to it.
So you're talking about specificity and transparency
Yeah,
as well, so
exactly.
people know what they're voting
And
on.
it can happen, and it may be persuasive, but I would say right now there are a lot of people undecided.
All right. Let me ask you this, and this is about something else. We're switching topics again. Protesters at UT in May last year have just been indicted by a Knox County grand jury this week. One of them, well-known Knoxville restaurateur Yassine Tourou, facing 1 count of criminal trespassing from the on-campus gathering for Nakba Vigil Day. It was a peaceful protest. The issue here, apparently, is that UT said protesters had not reserved the right space to hold their protest and would not leave when asked. What is your response to that?
Well, I mean, I don't run the university. I think to wait a year before there's legal action is in itself unreasonable. I mean, we all know what happened. They should have either had the charges dropped or been indicted a few weeks later, not a year later. And I think on that account, they probably ought to fail. I mean, why are we doing this a year later?
And we're not the only ones. It just came out that one of the protesters at the Super Bowl, who was part of the halftime show, who held that Sudan flag, has just been indicted. So what do you make of these that are happening all over?
It's hard to make anything. I'm not up to speed on it. I think people have a right to voice their views that I don't agree with, but and should be done in a lawful way. But to wait a year for an indictment in and of itself appears to be highly unreasonable.
All right, politics?
Well, you just wonder, who made that decision not to pursue it in a more expeditious fashion?
I want to ask you, as I mentioned, you're Knoxville's longest running mayor, and you were the mayor when I came into town in 1993, and have certainly seen so much growth, especially with the beautiful parks and all the different things. Is the city where you thought it would be back when you were in office at this point?
In some ways, it's much further than what I thought. I mean, the development downtown on Market Square, the Covenant baseball stadium, those are amazing, and they're great projects for the city. And I think the city's grown by 10,000 people just in the last 10 years. So if anything, the city's further ahead. I hope I helped as well as Mayor Haslam and others in setting the foundation for Mayor Kincannon and whoever follows her in 2 years to continue building at a progressive and reasonable rate. And I think the baseball stadium is a huge addition that's hard to quantify in terms of its positive nature.
It's a jewel. You feel like you're in a miniature version of a major league stadium.
And when you go there, you just have a great time, not only watching the game and supporting the team, but just having a good social time.
It is a place for socializing.
Whoever you're there with.
Yes, you're so right. You nailed that. That is so apt. When you look around and look back, what are you most proud of?
Oh, definitely parks and greenways, and When I came in office, there were about 4 miles of greenways. When I left, there were about 40. I think today it's up to 70 or 80. Parks have been dramatically increased. My goal was to have a large park, meaning 100 acres or more, within a 5 or 6 minute drive of every resident of the city. And I think we achieved that. And now it's up to whoever the mayor is to continue that and to make sure the parks that we have are well serving the neighborhoods that are there, and look at any areas where we may need to do more or change the type of recreational activities that are available, at a park, whether it's soccer, baseball, frisbee golf,
pickleball, that's the new thing,
whatever
newish.
it is. And I think that's very exciting. And recreation has a lot to do with the quality of life. It builds safer neighborhoods. It enhances property values. It's good for the health and welfare of everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. What about urban wilderness and preserving that?
Well, that's part of it, I would say, particularly in South Knoxville, where as I was leaving office, we bought the Hasty Park area, who was named the first African American to ever be a governor of the United States in the Virgin Islands. And that's become a place known nationally for bikers and people who like to enjoy that type of wilderness. And it's also been an economic engine for South Knoxville. And it leads us, of course, to the question of the Gay Street Bridge being put back into operation as soon as it can be.
You read my mind. That's my next question.
For vehicular traffic.
Yeah.
Every day it's down is not a good day.
What would you do about the Gay Street Bridge had it happened
I would
during your
do,
time?
and I think City Council, the mayor, are working on it, to get it opened as quickly as you can. Right now it's closed even to pedestrians, but I would make it a top priority, just as I-40 is going to reopen hopefully on the 4th for traffic from here over to Asheville, where you had another rock slide. I think this...
It just reopened.
That's even better.
Yes.
But we shouldn't have to wait till the next mayor takes office in the third Saturday of 2027 before cars can be driving across the Gay Street Bridge. That's essential that that happens soon. The new council member from South Knoxville, who there will be one, needs to make that a priority. I'm sure the person will make it a priority. And the next mayor, and hopefully Ken Cannon will have been successful in having it open before she leaves office.
Do you think that's the plan?
I don't know what the plan is, but it certainly ought to be part of the plan if it's humanly possible, consistent with safety, obviously.
Do you think there's a need for another bridge?
I don't know if there is
bridge?
yet. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen to the pedestrian bridge because President Trump has hadn't decided whether the 25 million that was supposed to go there will be available or not. No one can seem to answer. If it's not available, I think the pedestrian bridge is history. If it is available, then perhaps they can go forward with it. But that's a very different kind of bridge than the Gay Street Bridge.
Certainly, certainly. Is that the biggest problem, the biggest, most pressing
I think
problem
if you
in
have the Gay
Knoxville
Street
right now?
Bridge, and it's a huge item,
Yeah.
you've done well, and we can't do everything just to build bridges. We have other issues that we've talked about in terms of sidewalks, housing, parks, greenways.
Things that affect everyday life.
Hiring more police officers. We're down 60 officers right now. And in terms of minority enrollment, both women and African Americans, we're on the short side of that in terms of the police department.
Goodness. To sum it up, we're glad you're here today. And how would you characterize this city today versus when you were here?
Well, I would say we are continuing to grow. It's a great place to live. That's why people are moving here. And the future is very bright. And it's just important that whoever the leadership is, that they're good caretakers as well as promoters of keeping what we have that's special and building upon it.
Ambassador, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, glad we could touch on those topics. We appreciate it. But don't go anywhere, everyone. Our panel of pundits weighs in coming up next. Stay with us. We're back in 90 seconds. Welcome back, everyone, to Tennessee This Week. We're glad you're with us. You know, a moment ago, we heard from Victor Ashe, the former ambassador to Poland, former Knoxville mayor, on a range of this week's top headlines. Well, now I want to bring in our panel of pundits to discuss them a little bit further. We have, of course, Michael Covington and Julia Hurley back with us again this week. We're so glad you're here. All right, let's first talk about the latest in the saga of the Richard L. Bean Juvenile Detention Facility, with Knox County Commission deciding to have the Sheriff's Office oversee operations there after a longtime superintendent, very long time, Richard Bean, retired following complaints by whistleblowers, accusations of retaliation, and troubling talk of what goes on behind closed doors there. Let's weigh in on law enforcement taking over and what you guys think about that.
Julia?
Well, I think there are a lot of factors that go into things like this. And like I said before, when we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, this isn't a new situation. These aren't new whistleblowers. I mean, conversations like this about facilities exactly like this have happened for several mayoral facilities. So this isn't the first conversation I'm sure that they've heard. I'm sure that many elected officials have heard of these complaints before. It's just now coming to light that there are just so many, it can't be ignored. So I'm glad it's finally not being ignored, and I'm glad that there has been some steps taken. And I tend to honestly agree with the previous mayor there about there may be a conflict of interest with the Sheriff's Department now handling the same situation with the same people they just put behind bars. So there may need to be a conversation with the county and how they're going to move forward handling that appropriately. And we'll see which mayor actually handles this situation and gets it completely followed through.
I deferred to Julia initially because she had made reference to something I had not thought about, which is the sheriff is probably in the business of arresting a lot of these young people, and then to have them in a facility that the sheriff's office controls could be problematic. We'll just have to wait and see. I have a great deal of confidence in the Knox County Sheriff's Office. Richard Bean has been a friend of mine for years. I feel bad for him that time has just run out on his ability to effectively run that facility. I trust he will have a happy retirement.
He's 84.
He's 84. Enjoy your life, Bean. I hope that those young people get a good shake out of this realignment, rearrangement.
And that's the most important thing.
Right. So I think it's going to work out. I have a great deal of confidence in the county commissioners whose names were mentioned. There's some conflict or controversy about who's being appointed and who will run it, but I think that will flesh itself out and we'll move forward.
We'll certainly be watching, and we'll continue to talk about this. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're talking sales tax referendum in just a moment. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk sales tax referendum. It's coming up November 4th on the ballot for the city of Knoxville. And let's weigh in. We're almost out of time. So, Michael, what do you think about this at this point?
I just want to say I'm not necessarily in favor of raising this sales tax, but if it does pass, I would ask the city council and the county commission step forward, put a pool of money together so teachers don't have to go in their pockets and pay for school supplies, for the classrooms every year. It's a burden on teachers that should not be there, and we can make that problem go away.
Julia.
One thing I would like to know is exactly how much money is going to be left after the end of it. Maintenance of effort for schools, maintenance of effort is going to be required for the roads commissioners, and all the raises come with tax increases. The more taxes, the more salaries. We need to know exactly how much money at the end of the day everybody's going to get and how much the taxpayers are actually going to see benefit them. I haven't seen that plan yet. Can't get behind it.
You guys have your ears to the ground. Do you think this will pass, given who you've been talking with?
The initial response to the increase has been zero, no. But when you start talking about schools getting more money and schools needing the money, I'm even softening to it. And I talk to people positively about it and not so negatively if teachers are taken care of in the classroom.
What about you?
Everybody's a no. Nobody wants more taxes, even if they're needed. It's just a lot of people are a no.
Even if it were to benefit a lot of people.
I don't think we're hearing that.
Kids.
I don't think people are hearing that part of it.
Ambassador Ashe said there needs to be a better education about the functionality of this increase.
Lay it all out.
Lay it all out.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you, for being with us. We appreciate it, and we are so glad that you're with us as well. Thanks so much for joining us for Tennessee This Week. Have a good week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Next Star Broadcasting.